All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to be dissecting a truly classic tale. It's all about fate, family, and what it takes to find freedom. We're going to explore how these ancient characters managed to break a curse that seems, well, completely unbreakable. We're going to start with this really chilling line from our protagonist, Iphigenia. Listen to that. This single sentence sets the entire stage. It tells you right away that this family's inheritance isn't about land or titles. It's about a legacy of bloodshed. So this legendary curse of Tantalus, the story frames it as something much more than just a mythological backstory. You got to think of it as a psychological prison. It's this deep-seated idea of ancestral fate that has an entire family line trapped in a cycle of violence they just can't seem to escape. So how does this prison actually work? Well, you can think of it as having three massive walls. First, you've got this relentless cycle of violence. Every crime has to be paid back with more blood. Then there's this heavy burden of inherited guilt, this feeling that they're just doomed from birth. And finally, that leads to total isolation. They're outcasts, not just from society, but from themselves. This idea of inherited guilt is actually tied to a really important concept in Greek tragedy called hamartia, which basically means a tragic flaw. But what's different here is that it's not just a personal mistake. No, it's treated almost like a genetic disease passed down from parent to child. It makes everyone believe that their choices are already written for them by fate, that they have no real free will. Okay, so this curse isn't just some abstract concept floating around. It has real, devastating consequences for the people who inherit it. And that brings us to the two central characters, a brother and a sister, who are right at the heart of this whole story. And what's fascinating is how we see their shared problem through two totally different lenses. For Iphigenia, she's physically safe as a priestess, but she's suffering this deep spiritual exile. She calls it a living death because she's completely cut off from her home, her identity. Her brother Orestes, on the other hand, is living a psychological nightmare, literally being hunted by the Furies, which are basically the personification of his own guilt. Iphigenia's situation? Man, talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Her inner conflict is just this storm of loyalties pulling her in every direction. She owes her life to King Thoas, but he's demanding she sacrifice innocent people. She has to save her brother, but to do that, she has to betray the very person who saved her. She's devoted to her goddess, but she's starting to question the morality of what she's being asked to do. And on top of it all, she just wants to be true to herself, even when a lie seems like the only logical way out. Now, let's switch over to her brother Orestes, because his journey is something else. He shows up completely broken. He actually has a death wish and sees being sacrificed as a welcome escape from his suffering. But then he has this powerful vision. He sees his ancestors, who are always at war, finally at peace, happily forgiven. And that little spark of hope turns into a raging fire when he finally recognizes his sister. That's the moment he goes from being a victim to a hero again. This turning point has a name. It's a classic device from the playwright's toolbox called anagnoresis. It's that big aha moment of critical discovery. For Orestes, finding his sister isn't just a happy family reunion. It's the thing that pulls him back from the edge. It makes him realize the oracle's prophecy was never about a stone statue of a goddess. The sister he was meant to bring home was his living, breathing sister all along. So, we've got our characters, we know the prison they're in, and that brings us to the real central debate of the story. How do you possibly escape something that feels inescapable? And, maybe more importantly, does how you escape actually matter? This whole conflict really boils down to two people, two competing ideas. On one side, you have Pylades. He's the ultimate pragmatist. He's like, look, lie, cheat, steal, do whatever it takes to get out of here alive. That's the old way of doing things, right? That's the way of the curse. But then you have Iphigenia, and she offers this radical, completely new idea that the only real way to be free is through honesty and moral courage. And that right there is the crucial point. This is so much more than just a prison break. This is a battle for the soul of their entire family. Because if they escape using the same old tricks, deception, violence, then they're not really free, are they? They're just taking the prison with them. The only way to truly break the curse is to find a completely new path. And so Iphigenia makes her choice. It's a terrifying choice. She rejects all the lies and deception, walks right up to the king and tells him everything. And in that one moment, she puts her life, her brother's life, and the entire fate of their family into the hands of just one person, King Thoas. So now, everything comes down to the king. He holds all the cards, but he's just been betrayed. Tradition, the old custom, it all demands blood. So the question is, will he just continue this same old cycle of revenge, just like the curse says he should? Or will he choose to do something different? So you have this epic standoff. It's a total showdown. On one side, you have the king's rights, his legal right to command, his traditional right to enforce the law, his personal right to get revenge. But on the other side, you have Iphigenia's appeal to a higher moral law, the duty to show mercy, the belief that the gods are good, and just a simple plea to their shared humanity. And then it happens. In this incredible moment of pure human agency, no gods swoop down from the heavens, there's no last-minute trick. King Thoas makes his choice. He gives up his right to vengeance with a single word. And that one word, farewell, it's so much more than a goodbye. It marks the definitive end of the curse of Tantalus. This is the moment a new order is born, one where a person's individual choice can finally win out over their ancestral fate. And this is the core insight of the entire story. This massive ancient curse, this cycle of blood and revenge, it wasn't broken by a god or by a hero's sword or by some clever plan. It was broken by a simple, quiet, powerful human choice to pick mercy over revenge. So when you boil it all down, the resolution gives us these three essential keys to freedom. First, the power of truth, which turned out to be way more powerful than any lie or weapon. Second, the nature of mercy, showing that our connection to each other can be more important than rigid rules. And finally, the end of exile, that true homecoming isn't about getting back to a physical place, but about finding a state of inner peace, free from the past. And so, this ancient story leaves us with a very modern question to think about. What cycles in our own lives, or in our society, feel as powerful and as inescapable as a curse? And what single conscious choice, a choice of honesty or forgiveness or mercy, might be all it would take to finally break them?